All right, moving on to multi-way selection structures. Basically, if you have more than two choices to make, so this is more sophisticated. Going back to our real life example, before we said that, for instance, we could have a plan for ourselves so that we say, if it rains, we're going to take an umbrella. Now, then we said else we'll take our soccer shoes. But maybe we want to consider more choices. So we say if it rains, else if snows, take snowshoes. And then we could even have consider more choices or more events. So we can say else if hails, maybe just stay in. Maybe just stay in, and then we'll just say else. So if none of these are true, if none of these happen, hopefully, then we'll take soccer shoes. Okay, so if it doesn't rain, we're going to visit here. Now this is a structure. This is a logical structure, meaning you would look at it from the top. So if it rains, you take your umbrella and you won't look at anything else. If this is false, then we're going to come here. If it doesn't snow, we're going to come here. If it doesn't also hail, we're going to go here and we're going to take our soccer shoes and go play soccer. Let's look at the flowchart for this. So let's give a slide here. So the flowchart says you would test a condition. If that condition is true, you're going to do whatever you said you were going to do. So you're going to execute your statements, and then you're going to go to the tasks after that. So if that condition is true, you're not going to visit other conditions. This is the really key thing about this structure. So as soon as you satisfy one condition, if it's false, you're going to look at the next condition. If that condition is true, you're going to execute your statements and simply go out of the selection structure. So you're not going to visit every decision, every condition, unless you keep having them to be false. Moving on to this, it's really important. We must listen to the monkey. It's really important. The order of conditions is quite important. So you're going to visit the first one, then the second one, then the third one, and so on and so forth. So if you look at how this flowchart maps to code, you have the if condition, it's the first condition. Then you have else if. So else if. So the first condition, if it's false, you're going to go to the second condition, and so on and so forth, and you have an else. You don't have to have an else at the end, so it's up to the problem, or up to you if you have an else at the end. Generally, let's look at an example. So here we say if price is, so we've set price to 56. Let's say, and our selection structure is as such. If price is greater than 40, we're going to do this. If it's this case that price is not greater than 40, we're going to visit here. And then if this condition also isn't true, we're going to visit the else. So we could have as many else if conditions as we want. Basically, we could have, so there's no limitations on the number of else ifs. You can only have one if in the structure. You can only have one if, and you can have one else at the end. If is mandatory, you must have an if. You don't have to have an else, and you can have as many else ifs as necessary. So let's do an example. So let's say we want to write a temperature problem. So let's say we're going to have a double temperature. Now, normally in computer programs, this is entered by the user. To make it easier, I'm just sort of writing in a value, but normally a user would enter it. And then when the user enters a value, that value is saved inside our variable. But we haven't really worked with user input yet. We're going to start doing that quite soon. So we have a temp, which is short for temperature, and it's going to have some value. I'm going to initialize it in a minute. You're going to have an else if structure. So we'll say if temp is greater than 30, we're going to say println too warm. Else, if temp is greater than 25, we're going to print out warm. Else, if temp, I'm going to say is greater than 17, println great weather. And then we're going to pretend like we don't live in Calgary, and I'm going to just say else println cold. So what happens is if temp is given the value of, let's say, 26, this is how this structure works. You're going to start from the top. Is temp greater than 30? This is false. So we're not going to visit this at all. We go to the next one. Else, if temp is greater than 25, is it? Yes, it is. So this is going to be printed to the screen. So in the screen, so let's say in our console, we get the word warm printed out, and we get out of the structure. So we are not going to visit any other conditions here, right? We're not going to visit the other else if, you're not going to visit the else. As soon as a condition is realized, you execute what's in that condition and you get out. You don't visit anything else. Now, if I did the same program over here, so if I said if temp is greater than 30, and I said basically repeating everything, so println too warm. And if I didn't use if I didn't use else ifs anymore, this is not a structure, right? So if I said if temp is greater than 25, and I'm going to say so I think it was just warm, and I know it's tedious me copying everything over, but I just want to make a point, and this is a really important point we're trying to make here. So we'll say great weather, and then we say else. So we're saying, so if temp was 15, you would print out cold. Actually, instead of else, let's scratch this. Actually, yeah, no, I'll just leave it as else. So the difference between over here and over here is, so if we had temp as 15 or as 26 over there as well, what would happen? So in here, this whole thing is a structure. It's a selection structure. Over here, what we have is, we have a single if, we have another if, and then we have a structure over here. So this is another selection structure. So what would be the output? First of all, you would go through here. You would say, is temp greater than 30? It's not. So we're not going to go inside of this if statement. Then we're going to come here. If temp is greater than 25, is it? It is. So we're going to print out. So we're going to print out warm in the console. Then we don't skip any of this. So we're going to go to this other if. So anytime you have an if, you go through it. It's just that when it's a structure, you don't go through it. Then we say if temp is greater than 17, it is. It is greater than 17. So this is also going to be printed. So also you're going to have great weather printed. And then you don't go through the else because this is also a structure. You see what I mean? So that's the difference with individual if statements. This and when you have if a selection structure. So over here we have I'm out of room, but this is a selection structure. Okay, let's look at the slides here. The same here. So you have, this is 56. So right then and there, you come here in the if price is greater than 40. So this block is executed, and then we don't even look at anything else. So the computer program doesn't go through this, and it doesn't go through that, because in the selection structure we already had our pick. So it doesn't visit all of them. It starts visiting all of them from the top, and as soon as it finds one, executes it and doesn't look at the rest. An example here. So if 56, and we say if price is greater than 40, do this. Else if price is greater than 35, do this. Else if price is greater than 30, and then we have an else. And obviously the first one is what is going to be satisfied. Notice that because in the if and the else ifs, there's only one line, we have moved the braces. So that's an important observation here. Else has two lines. So inside the else, you're going to have you have two braces. Or sorry, you have two lines, so you have braces for else.